Okay, so today you are going to be learning how to properly set up your fishing rod. And my name is Max Miller, and this is how I have been taught my whole life, and this is how we're going to do it. So, to begin, we're going to need our fishing rod. We're going to need our reel. We're going to need some fishing line. I'm using fluorocarbon. It doesn't really matter what you use. You can use braided, you can use whatever pound test you want. Today I'm using 6-pound fluorocarbon. We're going to need our fishing hook, and then we're going to need our knife. Now you can have a pencil that will help you with the spooling process, and I can show you that later. Okay, so throughout the training, you'll see that I recommend 2 different knots. I recommend a square knot and then another knot called the fisherman's knot. So I know through the video, it might be kind of hard to see the fishing line. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the knots first with some rope and then a carabiner, all right? So let's start with our first knot. We're gonna do a square knot. So take your loose end, this would be the loose end of our line, okay? And put it through your carabiner. The carabiner acts as the eyelet on our fishing hook, okay? So we wanna drag it through and just let it hang, okay? This is our loose end. The rope over here in my left hand, so on your right, is gonna be what's coming from the tip of our fishing rod, okay? We wanna just let this hang low in the middle. We don't need to do anything crazy. The next step is to come down and grab your carabiner, or what will be your fishing hook, okay? And put your loose end back through it. So now what you should have is, in your right hand, you should have a loop, so left for you guys, and then you should have the line from the fishing rod, or a rope right here, and the loose end in your other hand. So now once you're there, you're gonna let it hang back in the middle again. And what we need to do is take our loop end and go over and wrap it. You guys see how it's getting wrapped right here? We need to wrap it and bring it through this big hole we just made. Once we bring it through, we need to take our carabiner, which is acting as our hook, and we need to take it through this loop we just put through. Once we do that, you pull it tight, and just like that, you now have a square knot where it's not going to come loose. Okay, so let's move on to our next one real quick. Depends on how fast I can get this knot undone. Good knots don't come undone easy. Okay, there we go, almost done. Alrighty, so now we're gonna go and we're gonna do our fisherman's knot. So the fisherman's knot starts very similar, almost the same exact way as our square knot. We're gonna have one going through, right, our open end, and this acts as the line coming from the tip of our fishing rod. Now what we need to do here, instead of taking our loose end back through, we're gonna just come up and we're gonna make a little loop. Think of it as like a P that we're making up here, okay? And we're gonna do something just like that, you see? So now we have a little loop right up here. With your loop, once you have it made, take this other little segment over here and bring it in and pinch them together. So now we have our loop and it's all pinched together. We need to take our loose end and wrap it around everything right here in the middle that's hanging. And you see this loop on the top? Take this loose end and push it right back through. And when you do that, you create a knot, just like so, called a fisherman's knot. Okay, so now to begin our training, we have our fishing rod. Right here on the bottom, this is called a tightener. It is for your reel, okay? We put our reel in these little sleeves right here. So now as you see this right here, there's still some threads left down here. So we need to loosen our tightener all the way to the bottom. This helps to ensure that we can get both feet of the reel in here properly, okay? So now we're gonna grab our reel, and these are the 2 little feet on the reel. This is called your open and closed bar on your spinning reel. Remember, this is an open face, but some people call it a spinning reel. This over here is just your knob for actually reeling in the line. So these are our feet, and these little feet right here, these little pegs, is what we put into these sleeves to then secure our reel to our rod. So let's do that. I have it fully loosened, and I'm gonna take the bottom foot here. Remember, the top part of our reel is the bar. Okay, so this would be our bottom foot or our bottom peg. We're gonna put that in our bottom sleeve down here, pop it in, and then we're gonna make sure it gets lined up with the top. Once we know it's gonna line up, let's slide it up to the top and hold it. Once you hold it, just start turning your tightener to increase the threads on the top. Remember, it's just like a bottle cap. Just spin it like a bottle cap. Once you get it almost fully tightened, make sure it's lined up correctly before you really tighten it down. Otherwise, you could start busting or maybe even hurt your reel and your rod setup. So get it almost fully tightened and make sure that it's in the right position. It should be a little bit loose, but make sure that it's not gonna come out. Once you know that everything's all in line and in place, tighten down your tightener on the bottom as tight as you can get it. So we are now on step 4. Step 4 is taking our fishing line. We need to feed it down through the top of our rod right here, all the way down to our reel, okay? Now keep in mind, these little rings you're seeing, these are called eyelets. We need to go through the middle of each one of these. If we miss one, the line won't act properly and we're risking not being able to catch a fish, all right? So take your line, I'm just using fresh line, and start from the top. You can drop your line on the ground if you want, or you can hold it. It depends on who you are. Me, I'm gonna put it on the ground, and I'm just gonna grab my line and bring it up. Now starting from the tip, remember we wanna start from the tip, that way we can tie it off down at the bottom. So take your line and start feeding it through. If at any point during this you miss one, it's okay, just pull it back out and make sure you get it through it. It is very important that you make sure it goes through every eyelet. If not, the rod won't act how you want it to act, and you're gonna risk not catching a fish when you have one hooked. We don't want that. We wanna catch all the fish we can, okay? So now, we have it through every eyelet, and we're down here on the bottom, all right? What we need to do is make sure that our bar on the top of our reel, this is considered closed because the bar is flat. We have to have it open before we can start step 5. So to open it, just flip it up. That's all you have to do. Okay, so now we need to tie our line onto our spool. The spool is this little part right here in the middle, and this is what actually holds all of our line. So in order to tie it, all we gotta do is just tie a knot on it. Now, at this point in time, the knot is irrelevant. It can be whatever knot you want. Personally, I like to do the first part of tying your shoes, and I just do it twice. When you do it twice, it makes a really tight knot, and it's very easy to do in a really small space, such as down here by your spool. Okay, so now that we've completed step 4, and we have our line properly fished down through all of our eyelets, we need to tie it on to our spool. So, like I said, I'm just gonna do the first part of tying your shoes, but I'm gonna do it twice. So it's when you cross it over, right? You cross both sides over, we're gonna do that twice. So what I'm gonna do is take our loose end here. You wanna make sure you get it kinda tight down here. And this knot, we have to make sure it does not come loose. If this knot comes loose, you're gonna risk having all your line come off, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna go over and back under, really quick here. There's the over, and then I'm gonna take it back through the little hole right here. Oof. Come on, work with me. Okay, there's one time, and now I'm gonna do it one more time just to make sure that this knot does not come undone. So take them and cross it over. And once you cross it over, put it back through that loop. Once you do that, pull it tight, really tight. And now that we have our reel open and we have both knots tied on, we need to cut this excess line that's hanging off after our knot. So grab your knife, come over to your excess line and just cut it off. You want to get it as close as you can to your spool, okay? I know it's kind of hard because it's tight in there, but get it as close as you can. Okay, so now that we have our line tied onto our reel here at the bottom, I have already done it, but you got to make sure you close the bar here on the bottom again. So if we take a look real quick, I'm going to remind you really quick, right here, this is open. When the bar is up, it's called open. When the bar is down, it's called closed. Now you see this little groove right here? This is what our line sits in when we start reeling. So see how my line's over here on the side? I need to take it and slide it around and make sure it gets in that groove before I start reeling, or else we're gonna get a mess down here and we don't want that, okay? And now here comes the most time consuming and can be tricky part if you're by yourself, okay? So if you have a buddy or someone close by that can help you, I recommend that. But we need to keep as much tension on this as possible when we're reeling it in. It ensures that we get our line spooled up really tight down here on our reel. So this is where if you have a buddy, I've already poked a little hole through it if you can't see, but have them stand about 10 feet away from you, and you can take a pen or a pencil, or in this case a Sharpie, and you can put it through just like that. So now the line will come off very easily and you can keep tension on it, and it makes the process go a little smoother. Now if you are doing it by yourself, okay, so we have now filled up our spool, and if you look really closely right in here, you see how it's not quite to the edge up here. Now, we don't really necessarily look at the bottom edge when we're filling it up. We're paying attention to this top edge. If we go too far past that top edge or right up near it, what will happen is sometimes when you're reeling and you have a fish on, when the tension breaks, all that line that's so tight with all the tension, the second that tension breaks, all this line will come spooling out. Then you're gonna have a big mess of fishing line down here, and it can ruin a whole day. So in order to avoid that, try not to fill up the spool all the way. And now I have already cut it, but we want to make sure we pull our line down. Once we have it filled up, take the line from the tip of your rod, pull it all the way down to the bottom and cut it. That will ensure that we have enough room to tie our hook on. Okay, so for our last and final step, we're going to be attaching our hook with our line. So I'm going to be using a square knot. Remember, you can use a square knot or a fisherman's knot. And if you're confused about how to perform them, feel free to go back to the beginning of the video and look at the demonstration I had with the rope and the carabiner and try to use that to go off of to tie our hook in with our line. Now, you can probably see I have the fishing pole between my legs. The reason I did this as compared to just leaning it up is when you lean it up against something, there's a chance it can fall over. Well, if we're gonna be attaching these together, we don't wanna have a hook in our hand when something's pulling it because the rod fell over. So having it between your legs, you can stabilize the rod and ensure it's not just gonna fall while you have a hook in your hand. Okay, so to begin, we're gonna do our square knot. So we're gonna take our line and put it through the eyelet hole, just like the eyelet on our rod. We're gonna put it through the eyelet hole of our hook. And remember, we're doing a square knot. So with a square knot, you gotta take the open end of the line and put it back through your hook. So if you do it correctly, you should have a loop on one side, then you should have the open end and then the line coming from the rod on the other side. Now, what I'm doing right now is just messing with the amount of loop that I have. The more loop you have, the better, but only do it up to a certain point. If you get too much, then it's a lot of line to try to work with. So now that I have both, we're gonna take it and we're gonna cross it over. All right, so now that we have it crossed over, I have a loop, I have a big circle loop with the hook on it, and then I have my hook. So now, make sure you have it pinched. Take this loop on the end right here, take it, try to pinch it if you can, and put it through the big circle. Once you have it through that big circle, take your hook and put your hook right through your loop. And once you do that, grab your hook and take your other hand that's pinching and just pull them tight. And now, just like that, we have our hook tied on to our line. The last part of this entire process is we gotta cut off this extra line. The fish can see that, so we don't want them to be able to see this and then not wanna bite our hook. So, take your knife and cut the line. Be warned though, do not cut it too close to your knot. If you cut it too close to the knot, you're gonna compromise the strength of the knot. We don't want that coming undone. So I would recommend leaving a 1/4 inch. So if you're looking at your fingers, take about half of your thumbnail and leave that as extra line of what we're cutting off here. So as you see right here, I am cutting it. And now you can tell that I left just a little bit of extra right here. That's all you need right there. And then the excess line can be tossed to the side. And now you have your fully functional fishing rod.